I was saying, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. So far, you guys have been quite shy and haven't shared, so please share. Tag all panelists, all attendees. Who do we have people in from today? With us here, we are going to discuss the renewable private PPA market in Brazil. And as you know, Brazil has been one of these markets where there's been lots of promise. It's a huge energy market, and we are really very much looking forward to the opportunities actually sort of like blooming, if you like, but we're already seeing some trends and some idea of where this is going to be coming from. So with us today, three super top experts on the topic, and I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves so that you can get to know them a little better. Some of you already have been with us before, so you may already know me, or you may already know some of the speakers. But let's, for the new people, okay, first, Juan Carlos, can I ask you please to introduce yourself shortly?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Juan Carlos Vadillo. I'm managing partner at Financial Advisors. We are a financial advisory boutique focused on energy infrastructure in Latin America. We basically are in M&A and data advisory based in Madrid, but with offices and with work in Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and Argentina.
Thank you very much. And Juan Carlos today is actually joining from Bogota, where he's there for business. So I'm in Madrid, he's in Bogota. Next, Ulises, what about you? Could you introduce yourself shortly, please, so that people get to know you?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. This is Ulises speaking. Well, we're based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We are following this recent development in through the free PPA in the power sector. Well, and we have an advisory consultant firm since 2005, focused in the power sector, and recently we've been much involved on this new trend here in Brazil, focused in the M&A and financing programs from BNDES and BNB also.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ulises. And Ulises is actually joining today from Rio. I wish I was there myself, also in Bogota.
We're all invited.
All right, but last but not least, okay, Jotham, please could you introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit about yourself, your company?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Jotham Grains, CEO of Enerside. We are a Spanish global developer focused on developing renewable projects, mainly in PV. And our main markets is Latin America ones, and Brazil is our biggest market right now. Then we have a very good experience there that maybe we can share with you today, hopefully.
Excellent, Jotham. And you're based in Barcelona. So we have a little bit of transnational webinar going on here. And I can see there are some people here. You guys haven't shared enough, so please introduce yourselves. But I see people here from Seville, actually a little bit from everywhere. And Jose Javier Gonzalez, welcome. It's been a long time. You know, we've known each other for a very long time. I'm glad to see you here. Okay, so yeah, people from Brazil as well, of course. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the first speaker today, which is Juan Carlos, to share his screen. And whilst he does that, I'm just going to remind you all how this works. You know, many of you have been here before, so you already know, but just a reminder and for the new people. So we're going to have three presentations that are quite short, Juan Carlos, then Ulises, then Jotham, and then we're going to take some time, about 10 minutes or so, to answer your questions. Please send your questions, the earlier the better, through the Q&A box at the bottom. Through the chat, you can introduce yourself, use the Q&A box for the questions, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. And we are recording this session, and we do have access to the materials, so we will make sure to send them to you after the session. All right, Juan Carlos, off you go, you're ready.
Excellent, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, first of all, thank you for everybody that are virtually there and listening to this. It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you, Insights, for the invitation again. And I'm glad to be with Ulises and with Jotham. When I talk about in general PPAs, I always want to start talking about the auctions. And the reason why I want to talk about the auction is because it's very important to understand what has happened in the market since 2015 and see why the future is going to bilateral PPAs. We all know that equity returns for IPPs have dropped in auctions. We all remember Mexico 2016 when they came to the market with an average price of $14 US dollar per megawatt hour. And that was not the end of it, because by November 2017, Mexico reached almost $21 US dollar megawatt hour. It was a very aggressive pricing compared that 2 years ago, we were coming from almost 18, 90 US dollars. But Mexico's story is a different story because Mexico is an investment grade country on one side, and they decided to go with US dollar linked PPAs. But then we have to move to the Brazilian market. The Brazilian market is even more impressive because they are not investment grade. They are not doing US dollar PPAs, they are doing local. But despite that, the pricing is very aggressive. So you can see in April 2018, they reached very aggressive pricing on PVs, for example, 118 reais for PVs, and in August 2018, 90 reais for wind. That is more or less at the same level as Mexico. But if we have to see how this impacted the market, we see that despite the fact that the auctions have been very aggressive, spot prices do not follow auctions. This chart shows the average pool price of the four markets in Brazil. It doesn't really matter the form. What is important here is that all the four submarkets have a very similar curve, right? And the interesting point here is that if we take the average price since 2010, for example, for the Northeast market, you will see that they have since 2010 an average of 250 reais. And that's without taking into consideration the inflation, right? This is without adjusting by inflation. 250 is almost 2 times what PBs got in April 2018. But if we have to do this chart instead of 10 years, 5 years, then you will see that the price goes to 337 reais for the same submarket, for the Northeast market. That is almost 2.85 times the bid pricing got in the auction in April 2018 with the 118. That basically, I know this is not fair to compare because one is long-term pricing and the other is historical pricing, and there's a lot of volatility in the future. I think the lesson here is that there is a lot of gap between the auction price, the spot price that the market is paying, and moreover, this drop of energy prices, as we said, is not necessarily benefiting industrial customer. So this gap is facilitating the purchase and sale of energy outside auctions through bilateral PPAs. Obviously, this encourages bilateral PPAs, encourages negotiations on that side. However, for the moment, PPAs are still expensive, not only in Brazil, in Latin America in general, because they are needed for financing and also for financial investors' targets. We all know there is lack of liquidity on financial hedges above the 5-year threshold. In the Brazilian market, when we have spoke to people, especially financial trades, we see appetite for 5 years, but everything after 5 years, the liquidity seems to be reduced. The next question is, are bilateral PPAs bankable? Yes, we believe they are, and actually we're working on that at the moment. But we would like very briefly to talk about the differences between an auction and bilateral PPA. If we start talking about leverage, in reality, leverage depends on 2 things, right? The revenue and the tenor PPA, or the tenor of the auction PPA, right? We will see that in bilateral PPAs, leverage that can be reached around between 60 and 75%. All depends again on the tenor of the PPA and on the income coming. On the structuring on bilateral PPAs, I think guarantees is always a discussion we have, right? But most importantly, the tenor is not the capacity to raise debt is obviously increases as the tenor of the PPA increases. Also, would like to talk very briefly about the off-taker. We always have this is a conversation we had in several markets, but it's always a contradiction we have, right, with lenders. On one side, everybody wants an off-taker which is investment grade, has a lot of assets, a lot of experience in the market. But the truth is that the players really willing to take a long-term view of the market, normally traders, retail energy companies, and those retail energy companies, obviously, they need for lenders, they need to take a longer view about the creditworthiness of their balance sheets, right? And that's a discussion. It takes time for lenders to make comfortable with these off-takers, and this is a process we're obviously working on. We always talk about the pricing. It's very difficult to guess what the price is going to be, for example, in Brazil in the next five years. Let's say it's impossible to know exactly what the price is going to be in year 16. But everybody has the same problem, and lenders also need to take a view on what is going to be that price. And depending on the price that we manage to agree with them in the base case, the capacity to increase the leverage is going to be one or another, right? Needless to say that a bilateral PPA has obviously a higher execution risk than an auction transaction. So the market challenges ahead for PPAs in Brazil are obviously the creditworthiness of the off-taker. We need to work with lenders to make sure that they get comfortable with the risk of the off-taker. And to give you an idea, if you run a very quick number on PPAs, you will see that, for example, a 10 megawatt transaction, PV with 2,000 hours of operating hours, a $30 a US dollar megawatt hour for 15 years, that gives almost $9 million US dollar of contract. And obviously that's the concern we normally have to deal with the lenders, because they are big contracts and balance sheets are limited in that size. We spoke about the market view that lenders need to have on market prices is important. It's important because in general, PPAs have 80% or 90% of the output for 15 years. So there's always a portion of the revenue which is not covered by PPAs, and definitely a tail in an 18-year financing that needs to be taken in consideration, and a reference price needs to be included there. Bank liquidity is always an issue, since we all know that we are going in specifics. You know, we are talking about we need lenders that are willing to lend in reais. On top of that, lenders that are willing to lend in greenfield assets, and on top of that, now lenders that need to take a view on off-takers. This is possible, it's doable, but the thing we're saying is it takes a long process, and this is something we have to deal with in due time, right? Ulises is coming now right after us, so definitely he is going to talk a little bit more about bank liquidity in the Brazilian market. I'll let also, we'll pass very quickly that. I'll let Ulises talk about the liquidity in the market. I'd like to talk very briefly about equity returns outside auctions, right? We have to be conscious that the higher the risk, the higher the cost of equity, the cost of capital. And when we talk to investors, they need double digits in the Brazilian market, and they need those double digits in order to take in consideration not only the cost of the debt, but also the risk associated. Here we are putting the non-investment grade greenfield assets with private PPA at the top of this equity return ladder, and we are talking about for double digits about IPCA in the Brazilian market. But the whole point is, outside auctions, the increasing revenues in US dollar megawatt hour should compensate a higher cost of capital for the additional risk associated. When we talk to developers, effectively they always have these options, right? They either go to auction, or they negotiate a bilateral PPA. So we always do this analysis with them, saying, you know, what do you think the auction price is going to be, and what is the PPA price you can get in the market? Right? Obviously, the difficult part is always to say what is the auction and what the auction value is going to be in the next auction in the market, right? We are doing this analysis assuming 118 reais, which is the value that was in the latest option for PV's transactions in Brazil. In our model, that yields us around 50% leverage, assuming a 20-year financing at debt service coverage of 130. That is our starting point in this analysis. And then we put two PPAs to compare. Again, the PPA only makes sense if you have those options, or you have those proposals on the table. And the value you have to put in the analysis are whatever you have on the table for you. We are making the assumption that we have a PPA at 130 reais and another one at 150 reais, right? We also put that in our model. We got 50% leverage for the PPA1 and 60% leverage for the PPA2 because you have more revenues and you have more capacity to raise debt, right? In conclusion is the PPA1 compared with the auction at 118 give us 1% more of project IRR and equity IRR. You know, we have at that point to decide if this is worth the risk or not. But if you have, for example, a PPA at 150 reais, that gives you 2%, 2.4% additional project IRR and 3% more equity, right? That obviously net of any EPC margin and without any refinancing upside. And why we are saying that? Because more and more people are approaching us to know what the value is after refinancing because the margins are tight. And more and more financial investors are asking not only for ready to build, but ready to build plus financing in place, and in some cases, NTP or even COD. In conclusions, the equity returns have dropped to single digits. You all know that. You can only increase the profitability assuming a high risk profile. And the high risk profile today is doing bilateral PPAs, not only in the Brazilian market, in the Mexican market, in the Spanish market, etc. The pool price assumptions, obviously, at the point are very important in a market that develops outside auctions. But this is a view you need to take anyway, even if you are doing auction, because when you do auctions, a portion of the value is outside the PPA in the difference between the P50 and the P99, whatever was the production used in the bid. Again, off-taker creditworthiness and a bankable PPA are a must, are very important. And that needs time. You need to have time to these lenders and to make sure that they accept that PPA and the off-taker under that PPA. Finally, debt and financial investors' commitments are important, and the earlier they do it, the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. Thank you very much. I think it's important, to value the options, whether it's an auction or a PPA, and how they compare, at least from the financial perspective. Next, I'd like to ask Ulises to share his presentation as well and share with us your point. Ulises, we do have some questions. We'll take them thereafter, but I hope that you're finding interesting, in any case, these presentations. And just to remind you, for those people who've joined after, we have the materials and we have the video, and we will send all of this to you. Perfect, Ulises, yeah. Okay, did you choose the document in here?
Just a second.
Yes, just go back actually and just make sure that you share the document, because, press stop share for me, please. And next time, just make sure you pick the document. It's just otherwise it pixelates and we can't see it.
Can you see?
I can't. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, can you see or can't?
I can, it's fine. Hopefully it won't pixelate. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Just a second, I'm gonna put here up.
You're ready to go. We can hear you perfectly too.
Okay, very good. So, well, this is the all the types of contracts that I think most of you already know. The common type of transactions that in the regulated market, selling directly to the distribution companies. On this case, you have a pool of buyers, which in the end gives all the comfort for the lenders the way they wanted to see. I mean, this is regulated. Besides being regulated, you have a pool of distribution companies buying this. That's on average 15, 20 discos buying. So you have this pulverized, and which give comfort to the lenders. And then the other side, you have here the free market, where we are going to focus, and kind of buyers we have, and many different kind of types of buyers. We're talking on free consumers, special trading companies. I mean, I would say that we have at least 3 groups of potential buyers for this free market concept and opportunities here. This is statistics got from CCE. Actually, this is public. Here you have on this left on this graph the average tenor of all free market contracts signed. We can see that most of these contracts have a short tenor. We are talking on, well, maybe half of these with less than 1 or 2 years. This is how the market has been working since, let's say, 2005. But these contracts we have here are based in 2018. I mean, this is a summer of 2018 contracts, and we can see that contracts with more than 12 years, 10 or 12 years, I mean long tenors are happening, and as we can see that on the red here on this red bar, approximately 12% of these contracts above 12 years, and well, actually this is just to make sure the returns you can have, and then also to make it easier to finance these projects. So the company here is that, well, contracts above 10 or 12 years are a reality here in our past 12 or 24 months. Okay. What about prices? I think that Juan Carlos already mentioned it. The types of prices we've seen. Basically, we have the regulated market, both for PV and wind, on average of 92 reais, 100 reais. And in free market, we can see prices ranging from 120, 150. Well, for sure, this will depend on several aspects that we are highlighting here. But overall, we have this curve. This is the yearly average. For sure, this is decreasing. Higher is the tenor, lower is your average PPA. So you always gonna have to make some counts. Let's say if 20-year, 15 or 20 years PPA would be better. This in the end would be a mix of average prices versus financing on all these things. Okay, but here this is a curve based on December. We have pricings starting from 170 and dropping to 100 or 90 reais. But on average, you could have approximately 130 or 140 reais per megawatt hour. This is based on December 18, but I think this is still valid right now. And here we are just highlighting 3 different points that could put this PPA, let's say, for 110 or 150. Okay. So first thing is the amount. We know that when you have just small contracts of 1 or 2, 3 megawatt average, we could have a better price. You could have much more consumers, and with that having a higher price. But for a centralized project, for a big project that I think it is our case here, above 50 megawatt or 50 or 30 megawatt average, we've seen that prices are from 5 to 10 reais lower than the smaller PPAs. Another point, for sure, this is the off-taker. You have, we have from one side the big trading companies and big consumers, and the other side very good tradings. And but overall, what we've seen here in the beginning of the year was some trading companies not performing. So on the trading side, for sure, we have very good companies, but you should be very selective on that. And the last point here we are highlighting, this is the sub-market. We here in Brazil, we have 4 different sub-markets and different prices for that. This is because of, well, the way we have our system here. But overall, considering that all PV and wind projects are located in the Northeast, we've seen the Northeast prices on the long term a bit lower than in the Southeast and etc. Okay. Here we are just highlighting the 3 different types of negotiation. This is for those that wanted to join and try to close some PPAs. We have first some bilateral negotiations that we have like 100 different types of consumers that could be approached through some bilateral negotiation. Okay. Then we have seen also some potential consumers or buyers promoting some auction. We have here the CEMIG example. CEMIG promoted 2 auctions last year where they bought more than 500 megawatt average on a very long-term PPA, 20 years PPA. And also we have the 3rd types. This is the seller, I mean the SPV or the developer or the investor that wanted to promote a competition, could promote some auction, just selling. And we've seen Casa dos Ventos doing that 1 year ago, and this is not common, this is Chroma. Sorry for the typo, but Chroma just promoted an auction, I think, one month ago. Okay. And we have many very known companies, reliable and knowing the market, that are moving to the free market. I mean, it's not just a kind of opportunity that everyone, for sure, many players are going that, but what gives comfort is that also followed by very renowned and big companies. Here we have some examples, and then here we have also these other examples. This is CEMIG that promoted the buyer auction last year. Then Casa dos Ventos. Then Casa dos Ventos also another seller. And Chroma, and this is a kind of bilateral market or bilateral contract that was signed. This is Voltalia, and for sure we'll have many other examples here to share with you. Here on page 6, this is just to give you a quick view on the different prices, regulated versus free market. Here we are comparing the wind prices for CEMIG auction. We for sure could take many other cases, but this is a graph just comparing CEMIG. Average price for CEMIG on the June auction was 130, 133, okay, and at simultaneously or close to that CEMIG auction, we had an ANEEL auction selling this at 91 reais per megawatt. Okay, and the second point is that this is not only the difference from 130 to 90 reais, let's say the 40 reais. In the end, if you take your gross profit or your margin, this is 58 against 97. So we have a lot of cushion here to be explored. Okay, to be compared with the ANEEL. Next page, we have a list of potential buyers. Here we are talking about, we have a list of the big trading companies. We have many large trading companies, both independent tradings or linked to some utilities. We have here NG, that's linked to a big utility, and also in the other side, we have other pure trading companies. We have also some special consumers that also can sign some bilateral PPAs, and free consumers. Indication here is not to go through all these names, but just to show you that you have 3 types of groups and a huge market to be explored. For sure, many of these players already have their portfolio, but they are constantly changing and looking for some gains. And in many cases, this is what PV and solar and wind projects can offer at this price of 120, 130, 140. For sure, many of these, at least these free consumers, they would have some incentive to change their current contracts for these new types of contracts with wind and PV. Then the question is, okay, if you have 10, 15 or 20 years PPA with a good off-taker, who could finance your investment? We're putting here 3 or 4 different options. We have Banco do Nordeste, that is BNB, BNDES, and the infrastructure bonds, I mean the capital markets. This is, we have a lot of information here to be explored, but I'm gonna just select some here. Banco do Nordeste, they are offering the best rates. This is like PCA plus 2 or 3. Okay, they can finance projects in the Northeast, so basically they can finance all the PV and wind projects that we're talking about. Well, with this type of rate of our IPCA plus 2 to 3%, this could increase the equity IRR by 4 or 5% for 100 bips, and this would be the impact on PPA prices could be around 15 or 20. This is what is similar to in reais per megawatt hour. Okay, so this is not only an easy thing. Despite these low rates, we've seen BNB with some constraints on their budget. So they're showing only 8 or 10 billion reais per year on their budget to infrastructure. And what we've seen is that many players are not being authorized, or many projects not being authorized by BNB because of these budget constraints, and they are recurring to BNDES and other sources. BNDES is the most known development bank in Brazil, but last year BNDES decided not to have, let's say, subsidized a rate. So right now BNDES is working with IPCA plus 5 to 6, similar to infrastructure bonds. But the good thing is that BNDES can offer 20 years, and BNDES can finance on a project financing basis. I mean, they are really open for the financing on the free market, knowing all the types of consumers and credit risks. And with that, this is a very secure option to be followed. And with that, BNDES, with that type of rate, BNDES can also provide some gains for the project and provide some good leverage also. And on the infrastructure and MLA or ECA projects, we are treating this much more as a complementary financing, since the infrastructure bonds cannot disburse right now and during the construction. This would be only after completion. So we are assuming this is to complete or to complement the BNDES.
Yes, Ulises, just to let you know, I'll give you a couple more minutes, okay? I'm sorry, we're a little bit tight for time.
Okay, to complement BNDES and BNEB, okay? And the other question is, okay, what will be the types of guarantees these banks, BNB or BNDES, would be requiring? So on a pre-completion, they are requiring bank guarantee or corporate guarantee from a AAA company. So, but most of BNDES maybe are requiring this bank guarantee for the pre-completion, okay? And for the post-completion, they have a similar package for project financing, but they both know that the free market can, you should have different types of guarantee or a kind of a strength on your guarantee package. So they're putting some additional guarantee or asking for additional guarantee here, okay? For sure, this is to be negotiated on a case-by-case basis, depending on the type of taker you have, your contract tenor, and the types of protection you're gonna have in your PPA. But what we've seen, the common asks, we have two asks from BNDES, that is some additional reserve account, some cash sweep mechanisms, and some obligations to put a new PPA in case your primary PPA is not valid or has to be replaced. Okay, and for BNB, we've seen some banking guarantee to be extended. So not only for the pre-completion, but also for the post-completion phase. But overall, this is our last page here. What we are indicating is to follow both BNDES and BNB financing. For sure, you have some pros and cons for each of these. But in the end, you can have with BNDES a very good, a secure financing, and with some upsides in case BNB budget are available. But in the end, as Juan Carlos said, some important things to be the equity commitments, just to move on very quickly with them, and then to be open to offer these additional guarantees. In the end, these additional guarantees here, like reserve account or cash sweep, this would compensate or more than compensate the spread you have from regulated to PPA. I mean, in the end, to gain 40 reais for the free market and having this kind of constraints or additional asks, our advice is it's quite possible or feasible to construct this kind of package with gains for the investor.
Okay, thank you very much, Ulises. Can I ask you to stop sharing the presentation? And as you can see, Ulises' materials actually have his email address. Just stop sharing at the top, please, where it says stop share screen. So you can reach out to him. At the top, where it says stop share, red button.
Yeah.
So you can reach out to him. You can reach out to Juan Carlos as well. His email was there too. All right, you have them. Go ahead, share your screen, please. We're a bit later than I expected, so we'll have time only for 2-3 questions thereafter, but we will go through those. And yeah, we will send you all the materials. You know, there's been a lot of questions like that. We'll send you the materials. Okay, Joachim, I'm going to ask you, once you're ready to, oh, you're unmuted. Perfect.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Okay, thank you very much. As I mentioned before, we are a Spanish developer. Then I want to focus more in our experience in the Brazilian market than in the financials that obviously have a very good insight from Juan Carlos and Ulises. And I want to focus more in an example, is our own experience there. Okay. First of all, we want to give you a little insight about what's NSI doing in Latin American market. We have present in Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, Mexico, and Haiti right now. Our main market is Brazil. And Brazil is a huge market. We entered there in 2014, and we have been developing this PV pipeline in Piauí, Ceará, and Minas Gerais since 2014. Okay. From the very beginning, we were preparing this pipeline for auctions, and after the political turbulences and the stop of the leiloes and auctions and so on, we started looking at the private market, the free market, to try to sign a proper PPA, to analyze the market, to understand which are the metrics, what's going on there, and maybe we can share this answer with you right now. Okay. First of all, why we choose the Brazilian market? Because I think that we are talking about PPA, but first of all, for that companies that are trying to enter in the Brazilian market, they have to analyze which are the strengths and the challenges the market has to face. First of all, it's a very huge market. It's like a continent. It's like Europe, more than Europe. They are facing an increasing on the energy demand. And this is a very good experience from companies that are coming from Spain and other European markets, very mature ones, that you know that if there is no need of energy, at the end of the day, you are going to look and you are going to face a change in the legal framework, probably, okay? Then it's very important to analyze if there is a real need and if you have this potential to go there. Secondly, we face that there is a very good energy regulation for distributed generation and utility scale. This is something that not everybody knows, but it's very important to have this impact because it's key to analyze and to plan how are your operations going there, how are going to be, because it's a huge country. Then the resources in the Northeast, as Ulises mentioned, and you have to organize and analyze everything. Then a proper and a stable legal framework is useful to do that. Sorry. Grid solarization with resource, land availability at a low price. This sometimes is not being considered in the SWOT analysis. And we have in the Brazilian market well-trained professionals. There is a successful track record for wind projects and solar PV ones, other technology as well, like hydros and so on. But I think that is very, very useful, the track record that they have there and that we are together facing in the oncoming years in Brazil. Which are the main challenges? First of all, to improve infrastructure capabilities. Because as you probably know, the resource is in the northeast mainly, but the main consumption in the southeast. Then is has been planned the infrastructure for high voltage infrastructure lines that are coming from north and northeast Brazil and coming down as to Sao Paulo and Rio and so on. Okay, and the second challenge that we are looking on that is this interconnection. When is going to be okay? When is going to be put in place? Probably in the next 2 years. Okay, you have to take this into account in order to choose the location of your project, because otherwise you can face some troubles. Not very. We are not very focused on the financial comparison between private PPAs and auctions, because Juan Carlos and Ulises did it. But I think that we all agree, and with auctions you have a low risk, at least from the perception of the lenders. Okay, and in private PPAs you have a medium risk, depending on the off-taker risk, right? Second, in auctions, in the lay-lowish, you have 20 years tenors, and in the private PPA is up to 15 years, like Ulises mentioned. It's very interesting because one of the questions that you put in the Q&A, actually in the chat, was how you can build a financial structure with a 5-year PPA or with a free market and so on. Then you have to take into account that out of your PPA tenor, they are going to be considered a flat price for the rest of the operation. Then it's very important to analyze these kind of things and to be very well advised on that, because otherwise you are going to face that, as Ulises mentioned, if you are going to go to BNDES and other financial institutions like BNB and so on, they are going to put 90 Brazilian reals in the long tail, and probably your equity IRR is going to suffer. Okay? For me, it's very important to understand that window opportunities in auctions are very short, are very well planned, are very focus driven, and you have a short window where you can be prepared to go to the auction. And you have to have your projects very well prepared to do that. There are greenfield projects, but not at the very beginning. They have to be on an advanced stage at least, okay? And contra private PPAs, you have these bilateral negotiations that are obviously going to be tailed. Then you have an open window and you can manage your times and your schedules and your programs and with the off-takers and with the PPA signers. Okay, this is something that has to be taken into account. That is an open window. Then is a bilateral negotiation, has no limit on that. As the experience has shown, the first auctions in the 2014, you get some PV projects and wind ones that gives you 400, 500 megawatts PV pipeline that you can put in the auction and be awarded. Right now, you are facing from 60 to 150 megawatts average size of the pipeline that you can be awarded. And this is switching because the federal auctions are going to be smaller since there is a switch tendency from regulated market to the free market. Then probably we are going to face new auctions, but they are not going to be very, very high. And with the private PPA, obviously you have no limit on your pipeline. Obviously it depends on your risk and the risk of the off-taker and how many megawatts you can put on your risk on this off-taker, and if you are diversifying this risk with other off-takers within your PPA program. And in terms of negotiation in auctions, there is federal auctions are reverse one. Then it means that are based on price. Then as you probably know, is online, that is very, very competitive and is a reverse auction. In private PPAs, mainly with trading companies and players that have a very good knowledge about Brazilian energy prices and tendencies, probably you are going to be negotiating about the curve price versus the COD calendar. This is something that is quite different, slightly different from the auctions, and it's very important when you are going to deliver this energy, because in the auctions it's closed. You can anticipate as well, but obviously it's closed. Everybody has the same COD deadline, and in the private PPA you can adjust it depending on pricing and so on. And other things that you have to consider in difference between auctions and private PPAs is that in auctions you have this the auction are going to buy you the curve, the production curve, okay, and then PLDs are not put in place, are not needed. You have your curve, for instance, if it's solar PV, you have your curve, your production curve, and the PPA is going to take into account this curve, obviously regarding all the third parties certifications that you are providing for going to the auction. Okay, in the private PPAs, sometimes it's necessary to deliver energy on a flat basis. Okay, for me, this is a very important point, because there is a difference between wind and solar projects there, because wind projects are affected with the zonalização and modulação. This is called that they are buying you the curve, but you always have to deliver normally energy in a flat base. The point is that obviously the wind energy projects is more difficult to have the clearance and all the visibility about the production curve, and then modulação is put in place, and then you're normally need go to the market or have another scheme additionally to your curve base. This is something that is very, very important to take into account when you are signing a private PPA. Not even in Brazil, it's worldwide. But in Brazil, specifically is something that has to be considered. Another challenge, another issue that we face in our experience, because at the end of the day, as Enar said, we signed a PPA with a trading company for more than 700 megawatts. Why we signed it with a trading company? We did this SWOT analysis, and there are some advantages and some challenges that you have to take into account and consider in your analysis of the project, your financial analysis and so on. First, ensure that it's a fixed price indexed to the IPCA. Sometimes it's a decreasing price, sometimes a flat price, but at the end of the day, it has to be indexed to the IPCA, because inflation rates in Brazil are higher than Europe, for instance, or North America, and the players that are coming and entering in the market, it's going to be with a PPA signed in Brazilian reals, you have to consider the IPCA. It's a very important thing. And the main project and the main PPA contracts consider that. Secondly, if you sign with a trading company, you are having the other part of the table and a knowledge player. They have a very good knowledge and know-how about how are the prices going on, which are the tendencies, which are the movements and tendencies that we are facing in between the regulated market and the free market and so on. There is a very focused negotiation, and it is something very important because time is key. And this, I think, is one of the advantages with trading companies. Obviously, industrial off-takers have the knowledge about how much it costs the energy that they are consuming, but probably they are not having this deep knowledge about the tendency in the curves and the prices of the market. Okay. With trading companies, you're avoiding having to take part in a competitive auctions. This is something that is interesting in terms of that you are assuming the risk of the CODs. You are analyzing this risk and measuring this risk, and you are decreasing your risk curve through with this negotiation with the off-taker. And in the auctions, obviously everything is going to be put in place. You have a deadline, and your movements are more blocked, let me say it in that way. It means that you can customize COD deliveries. It's something that is very helpful if you are trying to plan your developing process of your projects. It's important to customize these COD delivers. Okay, and trading companies, the biggest ones are used to do that. Okay, some challenges and issues that you can consider, obviously, have been mentioned before. There is a more complex financial structuring because there is a lack of assets in the balance sheet of these trading companies, and sometimes there is no credit risk valuation or from Standard & Poor's, Fitch, or Moody's. That is something that has to be explained. We are right now in Brazil, the free market is quite new. Then financial structures are analyzing that kind of risk. There is something that is going to be a challenge. Maybe it takes time to close the deals in the financial structure. Okay.
Joachim, you have a couple of minutes, and then we need to finish because it's
okay.
56. So just to let you know, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Then, and the other part is the focus on companies with big customer base. Avoid default and contract resolutions. From lenders' perspective, trading companies are more risky than other kind of customers, obviously, because some of them are very aggressive in the market, some of them are conservative, and you have to analyze very well which is your off-taker or the company that is going to sign the PPA with you. And if they are very well diversified with a stable basket of customers, it's going to be useful in order to close the deal. And something that you always have to take into account, megawatts medios. It's average megawatts that you are delivering in the contract. Normally, you are not delivering megawatt hour. In Brazil, they're always talking about megawatts medios, average megawatts. Contract periods is not the same 5 years than the 15 years of tenor. 15 years tenors are going to give you some advantages. Present and future prices, penalties, planning, measurements, a lot of issues that you have to take into account in order to put in place. And for me, that's all. I'm open on about to hear your questions, and I'm trying to answer that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so I just have a question for the three of you. I don't know that you've been answering.
Can I interrupt just a second, Belen? Just a second.
Go ahead. 1 minute.
Many questions. Yeah, no, just less. There are many questions. I can't answer all of them because we are running out of time. But if you contact me through LinkedIn, I can follow and answer whatever is left after this call. Okay, that's
okay. I just have a question of currency, guys. There's been a few questions about currency. Are they likely to go on dollars? Does it make it easier if it's on dollars? Yes, we know that is the question. Are we going to see? Can you just weigh in on the item of currency, because it's the only thing that we really have time for. We have 1 minute. So, and then, I have said already in the chat, you have the email addresses of our three experts right here. So by all means, reach out to them, and contact directly, because obviously you're going to get a lot more value possibly out of like a private talk. But the item of currency, to the three of you, who wants to start? Juan Carlos, you're itching. I can see you.
The currency effectively, it's very difficult to do a US dollar denominated in a market with this reais PPA, right? And I think also because because we don't have the depth of FX, we can't really have a FX over 15 or 20 years, right? Or at least not with the liquidity we could desire. That makes it difficult sometimes to do a PPA in dollars and swap it to reais, and mainly the financing is coming in reais as well. So I think it will be very challenging to do a PPA in US dollars. But I'll let Luis to comment on that.
Yeah, just complementing. Well, actually, we haven't seen any huge PPA in US dollars. Those buyers that could offer or could have some PPAs are those on the mining, basically in the mining sector. So they have all their costs or sales based in US dollars, so they would be interested to buy some energy in US dollars. But in the end, you're gonna have some complications on the financing also. So answering the question, for sure, there is a small market, let's say 1 or 2% in US dollars that could also be explored, but I have the perception these companies are already have already contracted their energy.
Okay, anything to add, Joachim, or shall really shortly, because we are already out of time?
Only that if you are a foreign company, at the end of the day, we are talking on solar PV, they are going to be, your EPC costs are going to be dollarized somehow, 70% or something like that, or less if you are trying to close with VNDS or VNV financial structures, then it's going to be affected for which is your lender, but obviously you can close your exchange rate for dividends or something like that. It's going to be useful for you, but the capex is that it has a very deep impact from the very beginning. It's going to be dollarized. Then the debt is going to be in dollars. It's going to be difficult to manage with incomes in Brazilian reals. Then I think that you have to go to Brazilian reals.
Yeah,
it's possible,
the is the income, of course. Actually, in Egypt, they had a situation where the prices were really expensive for one of the rounds. They couldn't close financing for the rounds. They changed it to dollars, the tariffs, and all of a sudden everything fixed and really cheap price also on the big auctions. In any case, we don't have time for anything else. So thank you very much for our speakers, Ulises, Joachim, and Juan Carlos. Thank you very much for everybody there, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you all.
See you next time. Thank you very much.